Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Things Metaphysical podcast with Kellie and Gail. This is episode 49. For those of you we're starting a couple minutes early, so we'll give you guys a little bit of time to catch up to get here. So this is our first time doing it at this time, so we will see how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully it's a good time for a lot of people.
So, as always, if you're watching, please subscribe and like the channel on YouTube. Send it to your friends. We're trying to provide information that everybody needs to help them continue to move forward. No show last week. This time it was because of me.
You're taking turns.
We're taking every other week. We're taking turns as to who's affected, so that we can't do the show. So we are back this week. We are hopefully planning on being here every week
Yeah,
going forward, starting now at 7 p.m. Central Time.
sorry.
So one of the things we were talking about is, what are we going to talk about today? Because
That's what we always talk about.
sometimes we have comments, sometimes we don't. Sometimes there's things we want to talk about, sometimes there's not. Today was one of those days where, yeah, not a lot came up for me, but we have some people watching us live now. So if you have questions, please put them in the comments section. Let us know where you're watching us from. And if there's anything you want us to talk about tonight, please let us know. We were talking about sleep for one and how that gets affected with energy work
Yeah,
and medications.
yeah. I am absolutely exhausted.
Mhm.
And I went through several weeks of getting really good sleep, and now I'm not sleeping at all again. So it's just energies ebb and flow like anything else. And we have a number of issues going on right now. We have, sunspots and solar rays and all of that stuff going on. And we have, I am really tired because my mind just went blank. But we have some retrogrades and some just general energy fluctuations. Anytime that happens, I don't sleep.
Mhm.
I just don't. And I kind of have to get to the point where I'm falling down before I can actually sleep. And that's kind of almost where I'm at, actually.
Mhm.
Um, I've heard from several people, clients and past clients, and one kid lately, which is always interesting to me when the kids start talking about this stuff, that just can't sleep.
Mhm.
In my area, we've had a lot of major flooding and a lot of rain, and a lot of people locally say, well, maybe that's why.
Mhm.
Maybe that it's really not. That might be part of it for certain people. Normally, rain puts me to sleep. I love to sleep when it rains. I can't now. I was sitting outside on my porch watching the lightning show last night at, like 3 in the morning because I just couldn't sleep. So people are asking me what to do,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I don't know. And it's kind of, if it's something that you're afraid of lightning. Okay, well that's why you don't sleep. Wear earmuffs or get a quiet room or something like that. Um, but if it's energy related, nothing's gonna really help. You
You know,
know.
and I think that that's, excuse me, a great thing to talk about is that there's a difference of being physically tired and there's a difference of being spiritually tired. And I feel like most of us right now are spiritually tired. So sleep isn't going to necessarily fix that one.
Right, right.
It's more, how do you refill yourself up spiritually so that you start to feel like you have energy and maybe aren't as depleted as you have been.
Yeah, and that is the big question.
Mhm.
In my life, I probably talk to more dead people than I talk to living people,
Mhm.
and that it doesn't help me sleep at all. It's that's not everyone's thing though. So I'm hearing from a lot of people who don't normally, talk to dead people, and they don't sleep either. So one of the things that I've been doing, which didn't do a thing for me last night, but it has worked in previous nights, is what am I supposed to be awake to notice? And if I start asking questions, why am I awake? There's something I'm supposed to be noticing. What is it that I'm missing? I wear myself out and go to sleep. Because I just can't, some nights it's obvious,
Uh-huh.
what it is that's bugging me. Other nights it's like there's nothing, I just keep asking questions until I fall asleep asking questions.
Mhm.
Um, Generally, I tell people to try and what's bothering me, ask those questions.
Mhm.
Because normally, if you start asking yourself questions, you're going to find an answer.
Mhm.
And then that you can address it, then it's out of your mind, then you can sleep. But energy affects not just sleep, though. It affects every aspect of your life. This morning, I was panicked because nothing was working in my house. There was no power, there was no internet. My phone wouldn't turn on, those kinds of things. And I'm like, all right, I got it. I'm going to be quiet for a while. And about 10 minutes later, everything came back on. But I don't think people realize how much it really affects them. And the more you wake up and the more you pay attention to it, the more it affects you.
And the
So,
more that they talk to you and give you messages so that you can't sleep.
yeah.
Well, I think one of the things too is when you're going to sleep, you're probably in the most relaxed state that you've been in, and more all of your defenses go down, which is
Yeah.
why it seems like you get more messages at that time.
Right. Right.
You're
Yeah.
just more receptive.
Yeah. And you can tell them to knock it off. I need to sleep.
Yeah, it usually doesn't work for me. I have said
Doesn't
that a lot
work for
lately.
me either. It does work for a lot of people. Doesn't work for me.
Usually, when I say that, the message I get is, no, we really need to tell you this now because there's something about us coming through now to give you the message that we won't be able to come back and give it to you. I'm like, fine.
Yeah. So that's what's been going on in my life lately. And a lot of other people are feeling it too, which is interesting to me because this has always been a thing for me.
Mhm.
Energy has always affected me my entire life. And whoa, we got small for a minute.
We get smaller. Yeah.
And no one else used to notice it. It was just me. And the more we go on with the great awakening, as people are calling it, the more I'm finding other people are having the same issues. And it's like, whoa, where have you guys been my whole life when I was the weirdo? So that's a little interesting too.
The other thing that's coming up that they want me to talk about a little bit is also paying attention to what kind of like TV shows or things like that you're binge watching.
Right.
Because that's giving you information. You're not There's a reason that you're watching it other than you might like it. There's also usually a reason behind it. So
Yeah.
starting to pay attention to that. Like for myself, in the last year, I've been watching a lot of science fiction stuff, which is not something because, as we've talked,
Relaxing.
I thought my first book should be called My Life is a Bad Science Fiction Movie. So it's not something that I've normally always wanted to watch, but in the last year, it seems really, really important. And I'm going to laugh and tell on myself a little bit as I had some really interesting things come out in pictures about 2 weeks ago outside my balcony. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if anyone else is seeing this that's looking at the sky right now, because it's pretty evident as to what that is.
Right.
So it's just really starting to pay attention to what kinds of things are you binge watching? What are you attracted to right now? What kinds of things are you doing more of? Because that's going to give you some information about the direction that you're going.
To a limit. I used to do that. I used to watch a lot of sci-fi or alien stuff or paranormal stuff right before bed, and I found I couldn't turn my brain off. I have to watch something completely mindless.
Uh-huh.
So I find silly comedies to watch. Whether they're old comedies or new comedies or somewhere in between. I have to do that to turn my brain off so I can sleep. At least until something wakes me up an hour later. But
They're
the
singing the George Michael song, Wake Me Up Before I Go, Go Now. Thank
Yeah,
you very much for that.
anytime. What I'm finding in clients lately is people are finding things that didn't used to bother them
Mhm,
really bother them now. And that's part of waking up to me.
mhm,
As part of becoming more aware of what's going on around you. I have a client who used to love murder mysteries, and she said she can't watch them anymore. She just can't watch them. They bother her. You
mhm,
know, why do people do this to each other? You know, why do they? And she went on this whole, probably 5 minute without stopping tirade on how can people do this? What are they thinking? What is wrong with humanity? On and on and on and on. And I'm just looking at her laughing because you see it now, when you are internalizing things or when you are being affected by things that didn't used to bother you before. It's yeah, that's what you're noticing.
mhm.
You're being more conscious. You're realizing we're all one. You're tapping into the giant ball of love and light we're all supposed to be.
Mhm.
And I find that really funny. That may be cruel, but I find it really funny that people who have watched this stuff for eons, their whole life, all of a sudden it bothers them. Horror films the same way.
Mhm.
People are now being very, I can't believe I ever liked that. And it's just like, you're so funny. Yeah, probably is cruel a little bit.
It's just interesting, on when we're on our spiritual paths in the human body is the directions that we're pulled and taken and what we're shown and how we're, interpreting it and things like that. Like one of the things that I forget about myself oftentimes is how many healing abilities I actually have because I don't. You're nodding. Why are you nodding?
Yeah, that's one of those been there, done that things. Little things
Hmm.
kind of sneak up on you from time to time that you didn't know you could do. That happens to me routinely doing paranormal investigations. It's like, whoa, didn't know I could do that.
I mean, I knew I could do it because I've done it a lot in the past. I just haven't done it for a while. And I had a friend who just had some major surgery. And I'm like, you got time for a 10-minute phone call? I can ease the pain. And I'm like, I can't believe that's coming out of my mouth. I sound like I'm like in my ego. And I'm like, I'm not, but I knew that I knew what to do to
Yeah,
help relieve what was going on.
yeah,
Or
I've worked
let
with energy.
whatever let me rephrase that, let whatever was going to help relieve what she was going through come through me to help.
Right,
It's not me, it's just what
right.
so
It's like we're the messengers.
mhm,
I've worked with energies my whole life, and sometimes I say things, and I'm like, where did that come from? And then it's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna, just go through it.
mhm,
Uh, I'm hearing that from people too. They didn't know they could do something or they could influence energy. We can all influence energy.
mhm,
That's why it's so important to be mindful of the energy you're putting out
mhm,
into the universe because we all have an impact on it. All of us do.
sure.
Yeah.
So, do any of our viewers who are watching us live right now have any questions for us or anything that they want us to talk about? Well, I don't know what energy just came in, but all of a sudden you can see it in my face. My whole face just turned
You
red.
got orbs again, yeah.
So lots of energy just came in and through me. So, not sure, like I said, we didn't have any preconceived notion tonight of what we were going to talk about. So, there's obviously people who need to hear this conversation about healing and what to do with it and how to let it flow through you. And, you know,
I
if,
think people are confused about where the energy comes from.
mhm,
It doesn't come from us. And that's why when I do classes, I tell people, you can do this.
mhm,
It's not something that only, divinely gifted people or whatever you want to put it can do. It's there for all of us to learn how to use. And the issue with that is that once people realize, and what I teach is once people realize you can influence the good, you have to understand. can also influence the bad.
Mm.
And that's something I think a lot of people just aren't ready to take responsibility for that. So they turn off everything because they don't want to take responsibility for their own energy and what they're putting out into the universe.
So apparently my spirit team is on high alert today because now they're singing the theme song from The Facts of Life. You take the good.
Well, you do, really.
So they're just in rare form today, maybe because I haven't really sat down and connected in a while based on everything that I've been going through the last couple weeks. So they are just having a field day with me during this show today. So again, if any of our viewers have questions, please put it in the comment section.
Yeah. I had a client ask a question. And I'm not sure I even want to entertain it here because it was so silly. But we talked about the Akashic records the other week. And this person said, if they want to cause something for another person, does that influence their Akashic records? And can they take it back out? And that is one of the more ludicrous questions I've been asked, because we do not add to, nor do we take out of the Akashic records. But if one person was confused by this, I'm certain other people are probably confused.
I think it can affect your karma more so than your Akashic records.
Yeah, and that's what this person was talking about, was more like not something I play around with. You know, you do not do anything to try to manipulate or control another person. That is no, 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 no. Don't. Okay, you don't want the karma from that. But that has nothing to do with the Akashic records, really. That's not something we manipulate. We can access it, we can access the information, but we don't put the information there and we don't take information out. You know,
Well,
we don't create something and then remove it.
well, no, that you can't do, but choices that you make can
Right.
affect the Akashic records because everything is free will and there's so many different options and scenarios built into the Akashic records based
Right.
on what we choose and decisions that we make. Like we all have our end goal of the lessons that we want to learn in this lifetime. However, there's like 6 different ways you can get there. So that's where the free will comes in. You're still going to learn the lesson. It just depends on how you're going to learn the lesson.
Right.
That's where the choice point comes in.
I discourage anyone from trying to do what this person was talking about to begin with. But the fact that they assumed if something happened, they could just go into the Akashic records and remove it, pretend it never happened. No, no.
Well, I think one of the things, and it's one of the things we talk a lot about on the show, is responsibility and accountability and what that looks like and what you're doing and how you're influencing people and what you're putting out there. I know because of how I had my opening, which was very quick and really fast and caused a lot of issues. That how I teach other people to do it and to go through it is affected by that because of how I went through it.
Yeah.
And, so I think basically life is a learn as you go.
It is, yeah. It's some lessons that we create for ourselves. We should think 2 or 3 or 74 times about beforehand. The other thing that someone asked me.
Before you get to that, one of the things, it's coming back. We did a podcast years ago, and it was about free will and things like that, and how it's impacting. And I had this great thing to say, but it just completely went out the window. But it really is and it's all about our second chakra and how we put ourselves out in the world.
Right.
As we grow and change, how we put ourselves out in the world grows and changes. And so it's really being conscious of all that because, we have an amazing ability to connect. We all do. It's going to look different for each person, but we can all do it. The degree may be different.
Right.
Somebody who's been doing it and that's their life's work for 20 years is going to connect differently than someone who's just kind of starting out on the path. Doesn't mean the connections are bad or good, they're just different. And I think so many people, and I know I've been guilty of this, like I've taken a class with someone and I'm like, oh my God, I want to do it that way. And then all my friends are like, what is wrong with you? The way that you do it is fine. So, I think that it's not getting caught up about what other people think and how they see it, but what works for you.
Right. Right. And that's true in many areas of our life, but particularly along a spiritual path. And in fact, you actually just fed right into what I was going to say. The other question someone said is, I'm a Reiki master and I've initiated many people
Mhm.
into Reiki. And a client came up to me and said, the symbols, because you use symbols in Reiki, that I use are different than the ones she studied a bazillion years ago when she started on this path.
Mhm.
And I think in my mind, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
If when you started out, you were comfortable with this, doing it this way, I think that's the way maybe you should do it. If it resonates with you, do it that way. If you'd like to try different things, by all means, try different things and try it different ways and see what really resonates. Sometimes we get stuck in, well, this is the way I was taught, so this is the way I have to do it. And sometimes you learn so much by just kind of experimenting in different ways. It's like the Akashic Records. There are many different ways to access the Akashic Records. Most people use, I think, pretty much the same prayer or a version of it, but there are many different ways, many different prayers, many different ways of accessing. No one of them is the right way. They all have value and merit. So I think maybe we need to talk about how on a spiritual journey, you're going to be exposed to many different ways of doing things. And then there are many different ways of doing things. So I haven't found a wrong way yet. And believe me, I've tried just about everything I come across. I've tried it at least once, sometimes 2 or 3 times. But what do you think? I mean,
I think that's true. I have a funny story related to sacred geometry. I had a friend who really studied sacred geometry, and she was teaching me how to draw all the platonic solids. And me being who I am is like, wow, that's just way too much. Here's an easier way to do it. And she got so frustrated with me. I'm like, you don't really need it. And she's like, how did you come to that? I'm like, I don't know. All I heard is this is way too complicated. It doesn't have to be this hard. You can
right.
do it in these steps and it's much faster. And
Yeah.
so, and I was like that with all the healing classes I took. I'm trained in like what, 6, 7, 8 different healing things. And I annoyed all my teachers because like within the first 10 minutes, and we've talked about this before, the first 10 minutes of each class, I'm like, well, this is what it does, and this is why it does it, and this is how it works. They're like, well, you have 3 more days to sit through this. Okay. But one of the things I found is even after taking all those classes, I I was never a purist. Like I never did things the way I was taught. I know for myself, I took bits and things from everything because it was really a remembering, because we all know how to do all of it anyway. So it's a remembering of all these things. And it just like I would hear it, I would see it, it would integrate, and that would be it.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think it just depends.
Yeah, I want to make the point there's no wrong way to do it because
Mhm.
this person who was talking to me she was very worried that she was doing something wrong. And no, it's really your intention
Mhm.
is what sets everything. If you intend a certain thing, then that's what you're putting out into the universe. It, you know, the little bits and pieces can be rearranged and reconfigured.
Because again, going back to what you said, it has to work for you. Like doing it somebody else's way may not be how you're meant to do it. And it took me a really long time to get past that, and to be able to say, you know what, this is great information, and this is how I integrate it and how it works with me. Thank you for teaching me. I'm greatly appreciative of it. And this is what I'm going to do with it.
Yes, now I'm going to completely disregard everything you have said and do it. Yeah.
And it just reminds me of that first healing experience I had. And can I reshare it on the show?
Yeah.
I was taking an opening to intuition course, and the teacher had just come back from the Casa with John of God, and we were doing healings. I think it was my third night of class. And so her assistant needed a healing. Me being the most skeptical one in the class, I had already had my turn, and I feel this tap on my shoulder again. And she's like, I need you to come with me. And I'm like, for what? She's like, just come with me. Okay. She's like, this person needs a healing. Do it. And I'm like, what planet are you on? This is my third day of class. I am not doing a healing on anyone. You are out of your mind. And she's like, nope, just do it. You'll know what to do. Just do it. Trust it. Follow wherever you're led to do it. And I mean, I did. And I mean, she like felt it, and it changed like a lot of things for her. But it's so interesting that we get these preconceived notions of how we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to do. I mean, I fought against it for a while. That's the short version of the story. But
Right.
I finally ended up doing it. And then there was another time where I was doing it again, and I saw white light shoot out of my hands. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And I saw it go out of my hands into the body.
Yeah.
And then for a while, and I think people have these reactions, so I'm just going to talk about it. Is I was afraid to actually put my hands on anybody for a long time because of
Yeah.
what came through and
Yeah.
what I saw. I was petrified to touch anyone. Like I would be like 3 feet up doing energy work on people. I wouldn't get anywhere near them. And it took me a really long time to get past that.
Yeah, early on in my life, I had a previous life as a massage therapist. That was the 80s. And in school, we were doing our final, and they had members of the public, just random people, come in off the street to work with us, and then we were graded. And this woman came in, and I saw the line when I walked into the room, and I was like, oh God, not her, not her, not her, not her. And of course, that was who I ended up with. And I could just see she was so depressed. She was so upset, and I was so horrified of working with her. And the energy naturally flows through me, always has. And I was really afraid. And I'm standing there in front of my teachers, and I'm like, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. Because I did not want to, have that energy going through her. And I started on her shoulders, and she started crying. She burst into tears. And I'm like, oh no, here we go. And she had so much pinned up anger and hostility and sadness that it all came out the second I touched her. And I just went through my paces and finished the massage. And I went 5 minutes over. And I was so afraid because I lost track of time. I wasn't looking at the clock. I was doing my thing. And it was 5 minutes over. And I was horrified that they were going to deduct something, and I wasn't going to get my license. And she said it was magical. Like I was so upset internally for her because I was just, did I do that? Did I make this poor woman cry? What did I do something wrong? And it was just the energy, and it just released everything inside of her. And she said it was an amazing healing. And her blood pressure went back down to normal, and her aches and pains stopped. And she actually became a regular massage client for a long time. But it was horrifying. That was my first experience with healing someone else,
Mhm.
and it was just horrifying. And I was not positive I was going to survive it myself. I'd always worked with animals,
Mhm.
and working with a person was so intimidating for me. And I heard my guide say, relax, just do it. Don't look at the clock. Just relax. We got you. And it was intense.
I
But
had
yeah, that
I
was
had the
incredible.
same experience doing readings. 9 times out of 10, I make everyone cry.
It's a release.
And it's not something that I'm going for, but now
Right.
if the person doesn't cry, I think I did a bad reading. No, I'm just kidding. Not everyone does, but and the way that I've reconciled is when you don't know someone and you start to give them information that is so true for them at the core of their being, they can't help but contain that reaction.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it comes out in tears.
Yeah. And that's a wonderful release. It's very cleansing. It's very clearing. But to have that for the first time is intimidating. It's really, it really is something.
I
And
wish there was someone like us when I was learning all of this, because I just had teachers who pushed me and pushed me and pushed
yeah,
me because I could do so much. They just wanted to see how much more I could do.
yeah,
I didn't know what was happening. I thought it was all just kind of fun. I mean, I'd sleep for 2 years, but I thought it was a pretty cool experience.
yeah,
So I think that there needs to be balance. I mean, like I wish I had some teachers at the time who said, how are you doing with all this? I mean,
right,
you have just been through so much so fast. Like, where's your head at? You
right.
know? So I think that's why I always say I think there's a responsibility when you're helping people, because not everybody's meant to have the same experience that I
Yeah.
had. There are people who've had, and I've helped them through it, and there are other people who do it much slower, and that's okay too. So,
Yeah, it really comes down to what resonates with you personally. I really, even though everyone has the ability to be a healer, to be a teacher, to be a whatever they want to be, it's not everyone's path,
mhm,
to do that. I do think everyone benefits from studying,
mhm,
either energy work or even massage therapy, anything that is not, strict Western mandated, criteria. Branch out a little bit. It will do wonders for how you think and the way you see things. Always feel a little bit sad for people who have never done anything other than what was strictly, here is the mold you must fit into it. And I never fit that mold. So from the beginning, I was
I
just
still
like
don't
this.
I still don't fit that mold. They
Yeah.
still don't know what to do with me and during my day job or where to put me or what I should be doing. Um, I was gonna make a point, but now I don't remember what it was. It'll come back. It always does.
Probably in song.
And 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Now they're singing the song, which they've made me listen to a lot, "I Am Light" by India Arie.
Mhm.
That is such a profound song for people
Yeah.
to listen to. Um, and the other one, I don't know why, it just came on randomly while I was out driving around, Sister Sledge, "We Are Family."
I
You
actually
know?
love that song. Yeah.
But I mean, to think about it is it has so much more meaning if you really think about it, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's fun to like, whatever music service you have put on shuffle and see what song starts playing and what the message is. Almost like picking a tarot card. Put it on shuffle, see what song comes up, and then see how those lyrics affect you.
Yeah, I actually did that one time, and the Beastie Boys' "No Sleep Till Brooklyn" came on. I was like, "Oh, man." But, yeah, I actually do that with, like, more like drumming or shamanic music or Andean music. I have a number of different CDs. I still have CDs, yes. And when I hit shuffle on the CD player, it just skips around, and it's always really timely what I hear. And of course, if it's flute and native drums, there aren't really many lyrics, but you can go by the names of the songs, and that is very interesting to me.
I was going to try it, but the song that's on my music right now is Freebird. That's a whole nother message.
Yeah, whole other thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So, anything else you want to cover today or you want to talk about? And
Um,
again, for those of you who watch afterwards, please subscribe and like our channel. Send us some comments. Send us some
please
topics that
share
you
it,
want us to
please.
share on all social media.
Yeah.
And always send us comments and questions. We love to talk about a variety of different things. As you can tell, Kelly and I have had a lot of experiences about a lot of different things. So between the two of us, I'm sure one of us can answer it.
Yep. Always. Yep. I guess the only thing that I would like to talk about before we end is make sure you do your inner work. Whoever you are, whatever you're going through, you are not going to be able to get the life you want if you are not grounded, if you're not completely honest with yourself, if you are not willing to do the work. Visiting your own darkness, visiting your own soul can be very intimidating. And in some cases, it can be absolutely frightening, but it has to be done. Before you can move forward really on your path, you have to do the work. And it doesn't matter if you've been doing it for years and you think nothing's happened. I promise you, something has happened, even if it is only subconsciously. If you keep doing the work and set your intention, you're going to get there. You can manifest anything you want, but you have to be on solid ground first. If you're going through something, a trauma or whatever it is in your life right now, and you're in a dark place, know that you'll get through it. Know that there is better times ahead. There is a light, but you have to be willing to look at the darkness inside yourself. And yes, I know, I hear it too.
They're singing There's a Light from, what's the name of that? The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes, I heard it too. But there is one, promise you. But you have to be grounded and you have to be on solid ground. If you are, in desperate straits right now, you're not going to be able to manifest your way out of that unless you look at the reason that you are in the situation you're in and you are willing to do the work to change it. You can't move forward unless you do the work to change it. No
And
matter.
remember, we all have a metaphysical jukebox.
Yes.
And it just lights up at different times for each one of us. But now I wish they would stop singing that song. But now they're just laughing and they're like, we're going to sing
Well,
it
I'm
all
hearing the
night
time warp
long.
right now, so good for you.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight, whether you watched us live or you're watching the replay. Again, please subscribe and like our channel, share it, leave us comments, questions, feedback, and we look forward to seeing you guys all again next week.
Yep.
Bye for now.
Bye.